Hey. Thank you. Thanks for being here. So this is going to be different because things are strange now. I don't know if you've noticed. I mean, really strange on so many levels, right? I mean, there's the regular strange. Musk is in the White House. AI is leading society. Effective altruism seems to be a lead philosophy of our time. And when we ask who's responsible for that, I think the only answer we can come up with is us. We are. And by we, I mean, let's say most specifically, South by Southwest. So today, I'm hoping is our opportunity to pivot. For us, and by us, I mean the weird people, to take back South by Southwest, take back the net, and take back reality on behalf of humans and all living things. And we're going to do that right here, right now. If you remember, I mean, I was here in the very early South by Southwest era. Austin was weird. And that's why this conference existed. It was, South by Southwest was the weird alternative to going to the Moscone Center in San Francisco and seeing some Silicon Valley corporate McWorld bullshit thing. We came all the way out here as if we were going to Burning Man, right? To say, what is this interactive thing actually about, right? What do the psychedelic people want out of the internet? I mean, and we came to Austin because Austin was the home of words that some of you will be too young to know. It was the home of fringeware, of Rose X Video, of Rick Linkletter, of Mike Judge, of Alex Jones. Right? And you think about that for a minute. Alex Jones, in that sense, was one of us. He actually, I mean, it was before this great divide happened. It was another person leveraging the weird-ass energy of this place to trip out. Yeah, he was having a bad trip, but it was still a trip, right? That it was, Austin was a place that nurtured pockets of weird. It was pockets of weird. And many of us who were turned on to computers in the late 80s and early 90s, we understood computing and digital as a tool for promoting the weird, for engaging in the weird. Because if you remember the first time you went online, or the first time you went on a computer, it was like being stoned. It was like tripping. It made the world weird because we were doing things in simulation, right? I write on a typewriter, take the typewriter, put it in the computer as a simulation. I am typing now, right? I'm meta-aware. I have a layer of weird, right? I was with Timothy Leary the first time he went online. And he said, not online, first time he went on a Mosaic web browser. And he said, oh my God, Doug, this is more powerful than acid. Right? More powerful because you don't have to take a pill to get it. Right? That's how profound the experience was. It made things weird. It denaturalized power is another way to say it. It opened up the notion that we are living in a read-write universe rather than a read-only universe. Once you can program anything, you look at the world and say, what else can I program? And you realize that everything is programmed. These are all social constructions. Everything becomes weird, right? If you're stoned and you take out a dollar bill, you look at the dollar bill the way you did when you were 5 years old. What is this piece of paper? Why does this piece of paper have value to those people and this piece of paper doesn't? Why am I not allowed to make my own piece of paper to be worth $1? What is this thing? It's that strangeness, right? And computing and digital, especially when we came here to celebrate it, it was about human beings collectively opening up their imaginations to make different things possible, right? It was about increasing or enhancing the human possibilities. And it was so sexy, it was so weird. There was no money in it. Those of us who got involved in this, if you remember back in the day, if you got involved in computing, your parents were worried about you. Right? It meant, oh, Johnny's going to go play fantasy role-playing games for a career, right? It was like you had decided to do Dungeons and Dragons because no one was being paid for this shit. Right? It was kids getting paid at best in pizza to make shareware, shareware software in the garage. They were penniless. It was kind of part of the slacker mentality. Like some slackers would go like read Camus or something and sit in a cafe. These slackers would learn programming and make stuff that allowed other people to communicate. It was a weird thing. It was so unprofitable that if you remember in the late ARPANET, early internet days, AT&T was offered the internet for like $1.89. And they turned it down. They didn't want it. Because this is just people being weird together. Right? But then we went from weird to wired. I remember Wired magazine came around and it was like November 1993. And they reframed the internet as a money-making opportunity. As it was kind of investment and dayglow somehow come together as this wired culture. The Wired did to the internet kind of what Pepsi did to the hippie movement, right? I want to teach the world to sing, but it was co-opted, right? And this renaissance that we were experiencing became contextualized as a revolution, particularly a revolution in business. And the reason they contextualized it as a revolution is because it was not a revolution they were after, but a reactionary force. Right? When you see a book like Kevin Kelly's book in the 90s, it was called 10 Rules for the New Economy. 10 Rules for the New Economy were not 10 rules for the new economy. It was 10 rules to keep the economy being the old economy. Right? When Nicholas Negroponte starts talking about, the difference here, we're talking about atoms and bits. And once you know it's an atom or a bit, it was trying to turn bits into the rules of atoms, where bits don't have the rules of atoms. Bits are fucking bits. They're different. But no, once they were like, don't worry, these bits are like atoms, and this is like that. That's just 10 rules. We can still just boost the NASDAQ stock exchange with this stuff. It's not about kids, hippie kids with pizza and neckbeards having fun. It's about business and amplification. That's when we got the long boom. Wired magazine said, thanks to the internet, the global economy will grow exponentially, uninterrupted, forever. And this was believed right on up to Alan Greenspan, who was the chairman of the Federal Reserve at the time. He said, yes, I think we are in a new paradigm. Right? A new paradigm to finally realize the Ayn Rand vision of an infinite economy. But what happens once people are investing money in this thing? Once people have bets on the net, on digital culture, they no longer want the infinite possibility of novelty and weird. That's not what you bet on. When you place a bet, what do you want? A higher probability of your bet coming true. Right? That's what it's about, increasing the probability of your profit. So instead of giving weird people tools to create novelty and new possibilities, we use tools on people to increase the probability of their behavior. Right? And we built this digital Skinner box around people in order to not just experiment on them, but in order to guarantee certain kinds of outcomes. Right? We invented sticky websites. Remember sticky websites? And the metric we used for the success of a sticky website, it was called eyeball hours. Isn't that a weird metric? Eyeball hours? That was a big one at the time. Your website had to have high eyeball hours. That meant the number of hours that somebody's eyeballs were stuck on your website. So if you think about Timothy Leary saying that this stuff is as powerful as acid, what's the one thing that he said that you needed to do to maintain the integrity and balance of your acid trip? You need to look at the set and setting of the trip. So we started this trip in Austin with a set and setting of weird humans collectively creating new possibilities. And we reformed or revised that set and setting to using technology on people in order to ensure specific outcomes, right? We ended up with a set and setting of surveillance and control. So we've been living on a psychedelic substrate for 40 years with a set and setting of surveillance and control, and no wonder we are having a bad trip. What I realized only recently, after banging my head against the wall for 20 years, going, my God, they took acid. A lot of these guys even go to Burning Man, and they take acid. They came to Austin. They played with the same net I did, but look what they did. The thing that we didn't realize about LSD, about Austin, about South by, and about digital is that these are non-specific amplifiers. Right? What that means is if you take a tech bro and give them acid, you get a tech bro on acid. Right? It's going to amplify whatever you put in. Right? So they threw in money and NASDAQ Stock Exchange and profit. We were just happy for anyone to even care about what we were doing. Well, come on, it's all fine. We thought that they would start tripping with us once they were in. But no. So instead, South by Southwest grew into an industry, right? And instead of South by Southwest being about the weird, it went from kind of the weird to weird washing. When you come here, oh yeah, you got that patina of Austin. And then it went from, it reversed entirely from weird washing to conferring legitimacy. Oh, well, we did our thing at South by. Oh, well, then they must be investable. Right? It used to, you did your thing at South by. It's like, why? If you did it at South, now it confers legitimacy on the opposite of what this thing even was. Right? Austin has become the epicenter of exponential growth. I mean, back in the day, Dell was the only company here, and it wasn't even, Dell was like in Round Rock or somewhere, right? It wasn't even really here. And what was Dell? Dell was a couple of airplane hangars filled with customer service reps teaching people how to order a computer. Right? And then now what? Tesla comes along with an abortion ban, right? Like the same week. Right? Mark Zuckerberg, he announces that he's moving his moderation team to Austin. Right? And that's like saying we're going to move our feminism division to Afghanistan. Right? It's not a matter of moving the team. You like that one? It's not a matter even of moving the team. It's the idea that announcing you're moving the team is a signifier. Right? Can you imagine that? So moving something to Austin has become a signifier for becoming part of the reactionary, anti-weird emphasis of the exponential growth net, right? That you're going to become part of Joe Rogan machismo. And there's nothing wrong with a little homoerotic tension. I mean, God bless these guys. It's all good, right? We have to help them get comfortable with it, right? But remember, right, Austin is a non-specific amplifier, right? It is maybe because of the indigenous people that I didn't, do a land acknowledgement for before I got up here, but it is an always charged geographical sigil that will magnify whatever we want, right? The same as technology, the same as South by Southwest, the same as psychedelics, right? And I think Hugh Forrest, who kind of runs this, he gets that. That's part of why they do, like, let's do a psychedelics track. Let's do a climate track, because they get, maybe if we put these things in the mix, they'll amplify in a positive way. But what I want to do is launch the re-weirding of the digital as the next iteration of the net, while we still can. And I want to initiate that right here, right now, as a public pivot from the probable back to the possible, right? From the utilitarian exploitation of humans to the amplification of the sacred expression and connection between people. And I think that goes back to using the digital as a model of mycelial networks rather than a model of global business networks. Sorry, Stuart, you got that wrong. Because what we're doing now is using technology to auto-tune human beings. And that's the part that feels so awful and scary to so much of us, right? If you're on Facebook, you understand the way social media works. They use your past to figure out what statistical bucket to put you in, and then put things in your news feed that get you to behave truer to your statistical model, right? So they can increase the probability. If they knew with 80% accuracy that you were going to go on a diet next month, they want to edge that up to 85 or 90% accuracy. They want to take the 20% of people who were going to do take a novel action, take something out of, away from their statistical accuracy. They want to shave that group down. They want to reduce the weird, reduce the people who are not behaving according to the statistical models. And this auto-tuning, it became a cultural value. We auto-tune our music. We auto-tune our human singers. And I get it for Ariana. You want her on the perfect note, right? For the most commercial, right? Right there. It's a perfect A flat. You were off, but we're going to tune it up there, right? And that's fine. Wicked, go for it. But James Brown, right? If you take his reaching up for the note and auto-tune that, you're slicing the soul off of the music, right? In the culture of probability, in the digital culture of quantized music, that reaching up for the note, that's the noise. And the note is the signal. And what I believe, what Austin believed, what South by believed, was no, the note is the repeatable thing. It's the reaching up for the note that is the signal. That is the weird. That's the human interpretation. That's the liminal place. That's where James Brown speaks to us even from the grave. There's a utilitarian function we can serve for one another, like being the doctor that figures out what medicine you need. But then there's a doula function that we humans provide for each other, that the AI, that no answer works. There is no prescription for what is it to sit with another person and co-metabolize what they are going through. Right? That's the stuff that we're leaving behind when we buy into the new utilitarian understanding of technology. There was a, throw in a joke here, there was a founder of one of the social media apps who I met at one of Tim O'Reilly's camps. He used to do those foo camps, Friends of O'Reilly. And I met this guy, and he was concerned for me, because he had seen, this is back when I was on Medium years ago, he'd seen these pieces I was writing about AI. And he said, well, Doug, I'm a little concerned for you. You're writing all these negative things about AI. Aren't you worried about what's going to happen when AI is in charge? Or that they're going to see what I wrote, right, and take it out on me. And I said, no, I really hadn't thought of that. And he goes, well, I've made sure to, to pull anything about AI out of anything I write before I put it up on the net. And I said, well, if the AIs are going to be so smart, aren't they going to be able to infer from the selective redaction of AI content from your material what you believed? He was like, oh, fuck, right? But the reason he was saying, oh, fuck, is because what he was concerned about was that AI was going to do to him what he was doing to all of us. Right? That's what they're building. That's what they're building. Right? And the more that we allow our technologies to auto-tune us, and I would argue AI does that too, because everything AI gives you is the most probable response, the most probable next sentence. What happens is AI will revert our civilization to the mean. Right? Just as it reverts every screenplay you try to write for that to the mean, right? It reduces it to the perfect Avengers script, to the mean. It's doing that to our society as we bring it into more and more of our activities, as we incorporate its values. And when you look at what's happening, I don't look at what's happening right now as so strange. Feudalism, if that's what we're going into, techno-feudalism or authoritarianism, that's the mean. Look at the history of Western civilization. Very little of it was spent in sort of Eurozone democracy, global values. The majority was Genghis Khan and Caligula and Alexander the Great. That's how people lived. And there were smart people living then too. All that cool philosophy and all that shit that we read, that was all written under oppressive dictatorial regimes. That's the mean. At best, this storm cloud that we feel we're living under in America today, most of the world has been living under that kind of storm cloud for most of the time. Even most of the time, we were happy. And most of the time, that storm cloud that these other people were experiencing was because of the way in which we were maintaining our happiness here. Right? So this is basic karma. Right? But this is also the way that technology promotes the average. This is what happens when we allow technology to promote the mean rather than the weird. So how can tech instead promote novelty, which is what I'm after? Most simply, it's by making things weird so the weird can make things. That's really the whole thing I want to say. You make things weird so that we weird can remake things. You reveal that this is a read-write universe so that we can start writing it again. It's that simple. Once you alienate yourself from the supposedly given circumstances, you can see that it's fungible. It's changeable. And only people who are willing to feel and get weird are capable of doing that, right? To go fuzzy enough to go, this is not $1, right? I am not a number. This is not my wife. This is not my beautiful car, right? It's that moment of weird, what David Lynch was begging us to do in every fucking movie, right? We didn't understand it. No, you're not supposed to. Why is this guy sweeping the floor for 10 minutes? Just watch until it looks weird. And once it looks weird, then the weird, meaning us, the weird people, can make the things again. Right? The original net was like Austin. It was pockets of weird. Think about Usenet. What was the joy of again, I'm sorry if you're not old enough to remember, but I'll tell you, there was this, on the old text-only internet, the way you found a conversation that you wanted to participate in was by going to this place called Usenet, which had thousands of different conversations, like alt, anime, mysticism, erotica. It's like, oh, those are my people, right? And you go into a conversation, you find a pocket of weird in order to engage with others, right? What is internet culture today? It's influencer culture. Internet culture today means talking to everybody at the same time. All at once, right? It's the opposite, right? It always has to be bigger. How do I get more fans, more this, more that? So you have to average down whatever you're doing, to some equivalent of tits and ass in whatever your field is, so that you can reach the most people. Right? Now, this is a design problem of the world in which we live, right? The economic model that we're using depends on exponential growth, right? And that's nothing to do with economics. That's to do with a 13th century economic operating system that was developed by kings who didn't want you to have any ways of creating value except borrowing money from a central treasury and returning it at interest. Because you had to return the money at interest, today GDP has to grow for us to feel okay about ourselves. It has nothing to do with reality. Right? Nothing in nature grows exponentially forever except cancer, and it kills its host. Right? That's not nature. So what does that mean? It means money is weird. Money is weird. Money is weird. Right? So once money is weird, so now the weird can make money. Right? What kind of money do we want? Right? And because of this wrong set and setting, this set and setting of surveillance, control, paranoia, and power, the people who are most invested are having the worst trip. Right, this is why, in the last book, this is why the tech billionaires I spoke to are building fire moats around their houses. That's not a good trip. That's a bad trip. That's like the kids who burn worms, right? It's like fun for them, but it's not good that it's fun. Right? Billionaires, moats, and Mars. I mean, honestly, where do you want to spend the apocalypse? I want to spend the apocalypse in my lover's arms, thank you very much. The real weird, and this is the thing that's so hard for them. It's so hard for the people who put the nouns on the things, who have a metric for everything. The real weird is going on between us. That's where the weird happens. It's interstitial, right? It's liminal. It's non-digital. It's non-metric. And it's so hard you can't pin it down, you can't put a number, you can't quantize it, so is it even real? Right? To someone who thinks the digital is real, the interstitial is noise. Right? The interstitial is the James Brown between the notes. It's nothing. Right? To the person who lives on the ticks of the clock, they forget about the duration between the ticks when life actually happens. But that's where we are. That's where we're living. I mean, for me, when I realized that was real, it was weird. I was in a hospital as the relative who happened to have to be there with this older woman while she was dying. And I wasn't even a close relative, and at the moment I was kind of like, I don't know, I felt, why the fuck am I the one who's here? And this was the moment when the machine started, it was like, oh, fuck, she's going. This is it. It's happening. And I'm the one in the room with her. And I was kind of freaking out a little bit, but feeling very kind of put upon and like this awful obligation to be with this person when this and and something compelled me to hold her hand. Just to hold her hand. Because she was out of it on the morphine and all. I held her hand. And I'm not tripping. It's as real as I'm standing here. I promise. She knew I was there. I knew she was. I was up there inside her. I could feel her soul, and I could feel myself helping her metabolize the moment that she left her body. I don't know if she went anywhere else or anything, but I know I was there, and I could feel her organism, her consciousness, her soul, whatever it is, using my nervous system and my whatever it is that's there to. And I understood, I understood that and I feel like I'm saying this to a world that's dying, and I'm sorry for that, but that palliative care is enough. It's not always about curing. It's not always about solving the problem. Sometimes it really is, or at least it's also about being genuinely present with and for each other. It really is. right? So conditions on the ground right now, if we want to play Marxist or realist, we are going down, right? Conditions on, this is fucked, right? If you look at it anyway, this is it. We are in it. We are over the event horizon, right? Over the lip. Woo. Right? So, just going down. Just a couple of options, right? One is palliative care. Be there for each other, with each other, love each other, use it. Embrace the apocalypse. You know, I was thinking to write a book, Embracing the Apocalypse, how to enjoy the end of the world and maybe save it in the process. Right? Because if we were actually there for each other, then all the shit that we're doing to each other starts diminishing. The other possibility is to flip the script. Right? No one knows what the fuck is really going on here. We didn't know about the gut biome till a decade ago, right? And there's more of gut biome than there is of us. We might just be carriers of gut biomes, you know? Who we fall in love with is my gut biome wanting some of those bacteria to mix with in its culture. Right? We might be the passive players here. Well, nobody knows. Right? Trees. I was taught that trees are shading each other in the forest. Remember? The big tree gets the light and the little tree withers. And we know now that's not science. It turns out it's the opposite. The big tree is taking the sunlight and putting it through its roots, through a mycelial network to the little tree, so the little tree gets nutrients. The big tree loses its leaves in the winter, and then the little tree, the evergreen, sends nutrients back to the big tree. They're cooperating. They're collaborating. We don't know what's going on here. Right? Even, you know, you talk to Rupert Sheldrake, who's the only TED Talk I know that was actually censored, because he said that the laws of physics might themselves be evolving. The laws of physics themselves might be changing over time. And what would that mean? Right? That was too radical for a TED Talk? Jeez. Right? Or magic. Right? I've become a believer in magic because, you know, what's the main sign of magic? Robert Anton Wilson and all he wrote about was weird synchronicities and weird shit starts happening. We're all experiencing that. Everything gotten weird, not just number 23, but they think about someone and they're there and this and that. It's all weird. It's all synchronicity. It's all strange. And it's all happening as if to show us there's other shit going on here that you can leverage. Have faith in that weird, because in the weird is the power. Right? Civilization is built, for the most part, to do the opposite. I mean, what's civilization, really? I mean, if you want to I mean, I'm not an anthropologist. What's civilization, really? It's old monkeys creating rules so that new monkeys don't kill them. Until the new monkeys finally are old enough to figure it out, but then they're the old monkeys. Right? Tech bros are like the old monkeys. Right? They're preserving the established order. Talk to the most billionaire tech bro you can find. They're more than happy to disrupt a vertical. I'm going to disrupt hotels. I'm going to disrupt books. I'm going to disrupt automobiles. But no one's willing to disrupt the underlying foundations of whatever this is, extractive colonial capitalism. Right? And because they can't, believe it or not, these rich guys feel powerless. They feel more powerless than anybody in this room. This is why with all that money, all that success, the best they can think to do is to build a fortress in Maui to protect themselves from us. Right? Then to figure out how to make a world that wouldn't require a fortress to be protected in. Right? They feel power. The best they can do is predict the future and protect themselves from it, rather than create the future in real time, the way any alchemist, any magician, any spiritual person, any programmer worth their salt would know how to do. I think we should claim it. We are magicians. We can change the future. And magic is a spectrum. Believe as much as you want. At the very least, we can use language to disable the mind virus of capitalism. That counts as magic, right? Using your words to create a spell that changes the way they think. You know, it's good old-fashioned NLP, L. Ron Hubbard style linguistic magic, right? We can write new programs that change the landscape, whether they're computer programs, economic programs, social programs, or we can cast spells that change physics, that change the very physics of the world. That's what we're starting to see. Look at things like retrocausality, if you want to see some weird-ass challenges to physics. There's stuff that we can do. I think we need to accept, as weird people, that consciousness precedes matter. That these dudes are wrong. Consciousness, awareness is not an emergent phenomenon of matter groping towards complexity, right? But matter is something that consciousness uses to play. And by changing the story, however it is that you're going to change the story, whether it's changing the story around capitalism, changing the social programs, changing our understanding of the physics of our reality, changing the story may prove more important than any invention that comes out of the lab, for carbon capture. Changing the story changes the way everybody does what they do. And that's where our Austenness, our SXW-ness, it needs to be summoned again. What is the story of this place, of this conference, and who gets to tell it? Right? What is the set and setting here? I think the increasing complexity and novelty of this moment has maxed out our ability to understand things rationally. We keep trying to treat what's happening as if it is complicated, but it is not complicated, it is complex. Right? We think that there's enough, we can put enough gates, enough traffic lights in the system to contend with the traffic rather than trusting people to use a traffic circle. Right? 1 or 2 rules and you're going to be a complex, it's going to work out. You got this. No, but more gates. We're going to get, it's sort of like the Jews before Jesus. We're going to keep adding to the Talmud, keep adding another law, an ever more granular law around this. If your cow tramples on the other person's sheep, then that person's responsible. But what if you had a fence? Yeah, but what if the fence was faulty? But who built the fence? And they're adding, and Jesus was like, oh my God, can't you just love each other? I get it. It was sweet, right? The best technology for coping with systems change on this order is not programs or even AI, but again, this is a pivot moment. I'm doing it in public. Here I am. It's not programs or AI, but psychedelics, spirituality, sex magic, ecstatic dance, intuition, pattern recognition, resonance, the domains of the weird. Right? This moment, is hopefully collapses our faith in not just fascism, authoritarianism, but the whole World War II kind of world order, which was kind of camouflaged colonialism. Sorry. We tried, going to have the World Bank and the IMF and all these things, and they're going to help develop these places all around the world. You know what development really meant was open your markets to us so we can develop you, right? Open your markets to our big agri-corporations that take your land from you and make it less sustainable, and now you're going to have to export. Borrow money from us, Haiti, it's all good. And then your dictator takes it and leaves, and we're still going to make you pay for it. Haiti and Dominican Republic are on the same island. They're on the same island. The Dominican Republic, they're living like this. Haiti, they're living like that. Why? Social construction, right? Debt from our great World Bank that we won't forgive, right? It's that realization. It's funny. It's disappointed and disillusioned, and we engaged that sentiment with Occupy Wall Street, which you can look at as a failure because it didn't accomplish the thing, But that's the whole point. It was an occupation. Occupy Wall Street was meant to model a new normative state. In some ways, Occupy was closer to Burning Man than it was to a 1960s revolution. It was, can we model a way of being, a way of forging consensus, a way of talking with each other, a way of doing politics? Right? So that's the real learning. The real learning is, can we occupy a new normative state? Right? And for me, and that doesn't have to be for everyone, go do your activism, do your thing, march. I'll come when Naomi Klein says to do something, I'll go do it, right? It's fine. But for me, it means shifting from being an agent of change, is the way I saw myself, an activist, agent of change, to an agent of care. And that does mean, in some sense, embracing the possibility of apocalypse, even if that's happening. Right? If it's happening, what do? If this is really apocalypse, you do social care. You do mutual aid. You start borrowing and sharing things with your neighbors. I used to do this talk called Borrow a Drill, where I went through the whole, what's the difference if you need a drill? What happens if you go to Home Depot and get a minimum viable product drill to make your hole? Who's being sent into a cave to get the cobalt? Where does it go when you're done with it? Because you're going to use it once, stick it in the garage and never use it again. Then you try it again and it doesn't recharge and you throw it out. What's the cost of that versus the cost or the price of going to your neighbor's house and saying, Bob, can I borrow your drill? Right? Then Bob may become your friend. Bob may ask you, oh, can we, if you have a barbecue the next week and like Bob smells the meat cooking, he's like, I lent Doug his drill. Why didn't he invite me to his barbecue? So you invite him over, and then the other neighbors are like, why is he having Bob over to his house? Then you got to invite them. Before long, you're having all these people over at your house at your barbecue, and that's the bad thing. Right? That's the thing we're trying to avoid. Right? But yeah, social care, mutual aid, borrowing things, ceremony circles, love. Right? It's okay, even if the world is ending, is it okay to have fun? And what happens if you do, right? What happens if you do? And then I start realizing the challenge, the deeper reason I think why people are afraid to have that fun, that connection, is because I think we all know, when you actually connect with another person, even just playing cards, helping an old lady out of a vestibule with her dog and her walker or whatever, there's a moment, I think, where we touch this, this thing I started calling the ocean of tears. I feel like there's, under everything we do, under every even minute interaction, there's an awareness that we're living on this ocean of tears, of trauma, of sadness, of what has happened over the last couple of thousand years, of the people we've killed and enslaved, and the trauma each of us have had trying to grow up in this society, each moment. And I think we're so afraid to touch that ocean of tears because we think it's just infinite crying when it's actually the waters of compassion. It's the ultimate interstitial connective reality in which we're living. And we're so afraid to touch that we construct everything to avoid it. Right? The internet, when it first started, for those of us who were raised on TV, it seemed like it was going to be an access point to each other again. Right? I'd just been programmed by Gilligan's Island for my whole life, and now I'm going to get to talk through the tube to someone else and make that contact. And there was that moment of, that weird Austin psychedelic, and that's the thing that was so scary. That's the thing that we had to build more capitalism on top. Oh no, musket. Let's musket down, right? Let's not feel that. But this is what a loving network counterculture is about, right? It's novelty inspired. The weird, ultimately, the weird is a form of compassion. And what keeps us from the weird are the figures on the screen. And I get it, these figures are real. They're on CNN, so they must be. They're real, right? There's Trump, there's Musk, there's climate change, there's these things. And if you watch Mad Hours, they're up there. They're these figures. But these figures, I feel like, yes, they're real and we should fight, but they're also distractions from the conditions on the ground. They're distractions from the real ocean of tears where we actually live. It's just like unicorn businesses to people at South by. Those are figures, right? Instead of the ground of weird, to which we came to play. Right? We had the figures at the Moscone Center in San Francisco. We came to Austin to get back to the ground and play. Right? There is a concrescence of novelty. What Terence McKenna wrote about would happen in 2012. It's happening. This is it. This is it. The synchronicities, the novelty. We all know it. We can feel it. There's the wobble, right? The wobble of the system. You can feel it. And the other side, the so-called other side, if you want, and if you're a red person, that's fine, whatever. The other side's feeling the same thing. They're experiencing the same horror show that we are. They're just experiencing it from a different perspective. The same horror. So what's the weirdest thing we can do, I think, is to reach across to our red state, blue state brothers and sisters and realize they are not the enemy, right? It is the enemy. It's this machine doing it to us. And a measure of its success is how far it can alienate us from other living human beings. I mean, that's why in the end, it's so good that we're here in Austin. Because Austin is the crossroads of the two weirds. Right? Of the Rogan weird and the psychedelic weird. Of the both weirds are here. So we can lean into our compassion. We can lean into our love, our sex, our intimacy, our smells, and our sounds. I mean, this was a music festival, remember? This was a music festival. They had a little interactive thing came on top, just to play with it. Right? I believe we can reject the alienation on our screens and retrieve the ground of connection here in the real world. Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah. Thanks. There's some we got 12 minutes. We got some questions on the thing. You can do the thing. Join via the SXSW Go app by clicking Engage on the event page. I didn't make that up. And I'm going to do a signing of some kind in the bookstore area on the 3rd floor right when this is over. I'm going to run down there. So if you want to talk after, come there. Okay, let me see. Weirds need to be united, I think, so we can keep being weirds. Being in a lonely weird might be part of the problem. Oh, I would say there are no lonely weirds. There are no lonely weirds. No, I mean, you can network weirds in an anarcho-syndicalist fashion, I suppose, but resist the temptation to grow your weird. Right? Growth is fine. Let things grow. Remember they used to say organic growth? Organic growth? Right. Organic growth is fine. And let it grow as big as it needs to be its weird. But it's fine if Joe's weird is in the next town and your weird is in this town. You don't need to connect the weirds. There'll always be, there's going to be interfaces and fine. But I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry about that. If you're weird alone, then yeah, find another. That's in the back of Team Human. That's my main thing. Find the others. Right? Find the others. First, find the other weird people in your pocket of weird, but then find the other others. Find the ones who are not, for me, it would be like the red state people, the people who are listening to Alex Jones today. I listened to him 20 years ago. It was kind of weird stuff. But now, engage with them. What are some examples of digital spaces or movements today that embody the spirit of weirding the digital successfully? This room, right? We're the start. This is the only one I know. I was on a Discord a couple of years ago, and there were some weird people. It's usually the people who are willing to create tide pools have more success at germinating weird than people who are using the rivers, right? So an infinite river like an X-Twitter or even a Blue Sky or something, it's really hard to create those little pockets. It's not about creating exclusivity, but stillness. Think about the tide pool where all that weird shit grows versus when the water keeps coming and washing it away. You don't want the infinite ocean on everything. So I'm seeing them all over the place. Podcasting space has gotten really interesting for that. It kind of replaced the blog or the web page as a place. And it's the beauty of it is it goes from top to bottom. There are, like movie star, super famous people with podcasts, and there's kids with podcasts. And each size, I like that when many different size of things. What does the next interactive age look like to you, and how do we ensure it doesn't fall into the same traps as the previous one? Ain't no guarantees. The new interactive age looks real to me, and this is just to me, right? And there's as many visions of it as there are people in this room or more. For me, it's very physical. For me, it looks like I just started doing this thing called contact improv. Have you heard of that? It's this kind of dance where you're like leaning on people and touching and stuff. Ecstatic dance, mushroom circle. I mean, think about at the beginning, right? We did rave. We got 5,000 people in a field, played 120 beats per minute, took ecstasy, and danced to electronic music. Now we get 15 people lying in a circle taking mushrooms, listening to music for mushrooms on analog synthesizers. We've grown up. Right? So, and I get it, because at the beginning it was like, let's get the whole world tripping. We're going to touch the aliens, and you know what I mean? We're going to bring bring on the eschaton, and crack the cosmic egg and all. And it's like, that was sweet, very American, very, but it was so universal, right? Because we come from the Enlightenment, and everything's universal, generic, everything. But no, it's pockets. So I think the next interactive age looks very local. It's people being willing. I'm going to make a restaurant app for my town, and it's going to work. It's the specificity of local, because we live local. I mean, sorry, we are local. We're not getting out of body anytime soon. And good luck astral projecting once you're dead. I think it's harder. It's going to be here. On some level, the next interactive age is going to be, I think it is going to be real world. Originally, we built the internet partly so that we, the weird, would have a place to go, because the real world was not friendly to us. So we went online and talked to our friends. Well, now the banks and the billionaires, and they all went online, and they all believe in that more than they believe in the real world. Almost like, cut the cord. Let them go, and we can reclaim reality, right? Reclaim the real world, the wet, intimate reality that they're so afraid of, right? The little Mark Zuckerberg running around in the metaverse with nothing from the waist down, right? That's a good time for them. What ideas do you have for the weird genius that created the internet to create something new and different? Well, the weird genius, the collective weird genius. The collective weird genius that created the internet, the next idea, I guess is what I'm saying is just follow your heart. The next great idea, it's compassion, building it all with compassion, building it all interrelationally, right? It's to look more at the network than the nodes, more at the interstitial. Look at the interfaces between systems is a really interesting place. We can kind of do systems theory about this and systems theory about that, but what about the gradients between those systems? I think that's where things are going to be interesting. Is there something in the new generative AI technology that excites you similar to the internet? And how do you use it to find, create, explore weird? I use it in a bunch of ways now. For me, the most interesting thing about generative AI is to query it with the same thing that you're working on so that you know what's already been done, right? If you're, like when I used it in my, the last graphic novel I wrote, not to do anything, but I would write a scene and then ask it to write the scene that accomplished what my scene accomplished. And if it wrote the same scene, then I wrote something else or stopped for the day. right? Because the way you know when you're writing, if you're writing, and fiction is way harder than nonfiction, at least for me. When you're inspired, you're writing and you're pulling out all that new space and you're in novelty zone. But then when you get tired, you end up lapsing into some version of Walking Dead or Lost in Space or whatever. Some trope will come in and take over. And that's how you know you're tired and you have to stop and go back. AI is really good for helping you recognize when you've troped. Right? The other thing, I think it's great to use it in the non-creative. I feel like AI is finally realizing Al Gore's original internet dream. When Al Gore was hawking the internet, he said, we already know all the things we need to know to solve the problems, we just haven't connected it. AI can connect shit way better than Google can, right? And the way to do it is query it the same thing, like in different sentences 10 times. And it'll bring different stuff to bear. It'll bring stuff to bear that you may not have expected is relevant. All right, let's just do one more. Any chance of more comic writing in your future? Yes, my very next book is a graphic novel that right now is called The Post-Humans. And it's about, I don't know how to say it yet. It's about two things. But mostly it's about a future where technology has not gone away, but technology's gone into remission, and the enchanted features of our reality become available to us again. So watch out for that one. All right, so I'm going to go, at 333, that's one of my magic numbers. It's the perfect time to stop. It's a cult. It's good. All right, thank you. Thank you for being part of this invocation. We got this.